Hello, everybody, and good afternoon. Usually it's good morning, but today it's afternoon because we love to accommodate the people we have on because all of our people, all of our guests are just top-notch, great people, and sometimes things come up. And today is we have the wonderful, the hardworking, the phone calling follow-up guru, as I know him, Dan Spitz from Captivate Real Estate. Brokered by eXp Realty out in Chicago. Dan, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
Man, this is really exciting. This is episode number 319, and that's 315 weeks in a row. I always have to look at my notes. I don't know why, but 315 weeks signifies 6 years and 3 weeks. So I'm really excited to keep this rocking and rolling. And we're going to talk about something that today we're going to talk about, how someone does business remotely, and also, most importantly, what follow-up is all about. So Dan, hang in there as we go to our intro video. Go!
Real estate agents, are you looking to acquire clients consistently to grow your business and income for a great lifestyle? Well, this is Dave Finale, and I'm here to bring you the Real Estate Skill Builder broadcast, Real Estate Talk-TGIF, brought to you by Real Estate Skill Builder and the Modern Agent team.
Well, thanks so much, everybody, for coming on. As we said, this is brought to you by Real Estate Skill Builder, along with actually the Align team. That needs to change a little bit. But the point of what Real Estate Skill Builder does is just what it says. It helps you build your skills without question. And that's what is really important about, building a business in real estate, is to completely and totally always be honing your skills. And today we're actually going to talk about some skills aside from a story and getting rocking and rolling. And that is Mr. Dan Spitz, coming to us live from traffic in the greater Midwest of Chicago, Illinois. Welcome, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's as bad as it is in New York and New Jersey as well.
Yeah, and also in Italy and France. So Paris and Rome, same thing. Traffic sucks. So all over the world, I can tell you that traffic does suck. So Dan the reason he's in his car is a 30-minute ride that has turned into an hour and 45-minute ride. So here we are anyway, and we do what we have to when we have to do it. And like I said, this is episode 319, and we're really excited to talk about follow-up and a lot of different things. But Dan, before we get started, I do have a question for you, which is really very, very important. And I ask everybody the same question. We start every show the same way. 319 of them. What does TGIF stand for?
I'm going to go with thank God it's Friday.
You are so close, man. You are so close, but you're wrong. Real Estate Talk TGIF means thank God it's finale. So you have to understand, it's my broadcast, my show. I do what I want. This is it. Thank God it's finale.
Even better.
And here we are, man. Here we are. We're talking about different things. But first, Dan, what I like to do is I like to get everybody's story, what their journey is, where they came from to get to where they are, how long you've been in the business, what you've been able to do, and the difficulties along the road. So tell me how you got started in the business of real estate.
Yeah, so the quick background is I grew up in Chicago in the northern burbs there, went to college at University of Maryland out east. And as I was finishing up, kind of looking to be in some form of real estate, was talking to another guy who's part of our circle, Eric Goldfarb, and he was leaving Marcus & Millichap at the time. I was ending school. I knew him from college. And kind of right place, right time, right people. That took me out of college straight to the East Coast. And dove right in with Brett, Eric, and myself and Andrew. So it's 3-4 of us to start. And here we are, 7-8 years later. Now we are launching kind of a expansion team out in Chicago, which we started 2-3 years ago at this point, and still trying to keep that Jersey business rocking and rolling in tandem.
So, all right. So you got started in New Jersey. You moved to Chicago. Let's talk about your getting started, though. Let's talk about, what it was like getting started. You graduated from college, and I don't think that real estate was your major, becoming a real estate agent.
It was not. So I actually majored in kinesiology and minored in business. Then I studied abroad my junior year, and that all signs from that said, go into business and don't go into medicine. And kind of took it and ran. And then originally wanted to be more on the commercial side, multifamily side. That's why I reached out to Eric when he was out at Marcus. And again, it really just comes down to the way I put it, ignorance is bliss,
Right.
And just fell in with the right people. And I can't stress that enough. And I probably say that 20 more times. Just being surrounded by Eric and Brett at the beginning was the key to it all. I started off going more on the multifamily side, then, did a couple leases here and there and quickly realized like I'm not meant for buyers. I'm not meant for leasing property.
Mhm.
And it was a choice of either we got to do something different or we got to do something like that I like within the vertical. So ended up kind of getting a taste of what the listing side looked like and really didn't look back from there.
All right. So as we talked a lot of things earlier in the week, and one of the things I mentioned is most brokers will tell you that you need to become a good buyer's agent before you can get listings. Obviously, that was not the deal with you. Right? You just said, "Screw it! I don't want to put the time in and not get anywhere." But is that something? Is that for everybody, or is that just for you because you were just more focused and hitting the ground running and really beating the pavement right out of school?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not for everybody, first and foremost. I still say this when I'm coaching people on my team out in Chicago. When you go after the listing side, you got to understand that it's going to take 6-8 months on the short turnaround and realistically 12 to 24 months to start getting in that groove, right? And it's going to take time to start getting one listing a quarter, then one listing every other month, then a listing a month, then 2 a month, then 3 a month, and then you're off and running. But you got to have either A, funds set aside, if you really do want to dive into that listing side, or B, you got to understand it's gonna not be easy, and frankly, it'll suck for a little while. You're gonna get the rejection, you're gonna then get the meetings, and you're gonna get all excited that you've got this listing in the bag, and you don't really realize that there's 3 other agents that are fighting for the same listing, and those 3 agents have been doing this for quite a while. So you got to find those differentiators, and you really do have to work harder than anybody else just to get your head above water.
Work harder than anybody else and continue to work, right? So you started on the listing side. So tell me, what was your process when you decided screw buyers, screw renters, and you got on the listing side? You dove into that. What was your process to do that?
So simple. I mean, it's still to this day, the goal is simplicity, and it's not to overcomplicate things. So the process was this. I was actually living out in New York City, reverse commuting to Hoboken at the time. And in a good way, in the city, I could park outside my apartment from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. So that meant for me not to get a ticket, I would have to be out of the house before 7, and I couldn't come home until after 7. So that kind of was a nice little push there. But the day really looked like, 7:30, get in the office, get settled in. By 8 o'clock, you're kind of hammering the for sale by owner, the expired world. And then by 8:30 to about noon is circle prospecting, just listed, just sold, anything around that world. Then noon to 1:30, go get lunch, go hit the gym, go clear your head, because it's not exactly the easiest thing to sit on the phone for 4 or 5 hours straight. And then when you get back at 2 o'clock, put in another 4 to 5 hours on the back end at the very beginning. That then, after 3 months, 6 months, once you have some follow-ups in the pipeline, it's the same morning, it's the same early afternoon routine. Then from like 2 to 4, you hit the dialer again. And then really from 4 to 6, 4 to 6:30, that's when you're starting to do follow-ups as those build.
So, all right. So can people do this business and make money at it, like calling just like an hour or so a day?
No.
Really? So the people that are making calls and not getting anywhere, wait a minute, I gave that away. They're not getting anywhere, right? Making calls for an hour and making some calls, they really don't have opportunity to build a business. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying? And explain that a little bit to me, and why not? And why did you decide to go all in? Is that what Brett and Eric and everybody told you to do? Or is just that this is how you get listings, just go do it?
So a mix of both, right? So Brett and Eric obviously kind of led the horse to water, so to speak.
Right.
But on the same token, still to this day, I really don't know many people who are doing it. And we'll revisit this, but one of my favorite questions when I go on a listing appointment is, how many people have called you about this home? And at most it's one or two. And most of the time the answer is zero. But to backtrack from there, the reason why an hour a day doesn't work well is twofold. One, when I first started, it was a lot easier to hop on the phone, get cell phone numbers, and get to the end consumer. Now we're starting to deal with a lot more, call blockers, spam likely on the other end, and all that good stuff. So you got to double, triple, quadruple your output to get the same results that you could get then.
Right.
But to put that into a tangible aspect, coming back to Chicago, I had to restart everything again. Yes, I've got a sphere here, and that's a huge reason why I came back. But it's a numbers game. So the way I look at it is the goal is to get a minimum 20 contacts a day. But even more important than tracking contacts, because back then I was hitting probably 60, 70, 80, 100 contacts a day. Now you might be getting 20, 30, 40 contacts a day if you're putting in 6, 7, 8 hours. But the goal in the end of the day is keep it simple and try to get 5 new people in your database every single day. And by 5 new people, I mean a legit cell phone and a legit email with their address.
Okay.
Anything other than that, not really worth hunting after.
All right. So you get 5 emails a day, 5 confirmed contacts a day. What do you do with them?
So then they go straight into follow-up, boss, at the end of the day. I don't take my time after every call to then pause the dialer, go put them in, then send out that email, then restart, right? The way I like to see it is go do a 45-minute, a 50-minute sprint, take 10 to 15 minutes and do whatever you need to do. Go for a walk, go to the bathroom, scroll on Instagram, who cares? But it's that repetitious boredom that'll get you there. So at the end of the day, I write down everyone's name, who we get their info for. I go back into Mojo. I put them into follow-up, boss. So they get a follow-up email. Thanks for taking the time to speak with me. My goal is to be a valuable resource for you over time here. None of it is a hard sale. It's more of, hey, we're here, we're around, we're active, we're strong in the industry, we're strong in the market. And when the time comes, we'll be here for an opportunity.
So in other words, you're calling with information. You have a purpose to call. It's just not, hey, you want to sell your house.
Correct. So I think the most valuable phone call, if I was a new agent joining a team, I'd go to a couple of the stronger buyers agents in the market that I'm looking for and say, what are your buyers looking for? What do they want? What do they need? And being able to genuinely say, hey, we have a buyer that fits your property really does get you there, right? Conversely, if you don't have that buyer, it's, hey, we just sold 123 Main Street around the corner. Wanted to see if you had any thoughts of selling. The usual answer to that is going to be no, right? And when you get that answer of no, it's not going to say, okay, no problem. It's take that next step and say, no worries. I'm happy to keep you in touch and send over some comps periodically so you can track the value. What's the best email for you?
Oh, great. Fantastic. And that's a way to do it. Now, what is your batting average? Let's say for, you make 100 calls. How many emails are you typically going to get? How much contact information are you typically going to get from those 100?
Yeah, so it's tough to look at it based on the calls, just because for some reason, some days are good, some days are slow. Is it a holiday? Is it not? Is it a weekend? Is it not? So I look at it as, of the contacts, my batting average is now probably 30 to 40% that I'll get an email for. But in the past, looking at everything, it's typically 12%.
Okay, so that's a really good number to look at. So, so you just mentioned holidays. You just mentioned other days. Hot, cold, rainy, snow, whatever the fuck we're talking about, right? Are there days where you say, you know what, it's a cold day, I'm not going to work, or it's the day before July 4th, I'm not going to work? Does that come into your head, and do you do it those days?
No, it doesn't come into my head, and yes, absolutely, because those are the days that most people are taking off. Like when there's a big storm out east and no one's able to go into the office, those are the best days to get people on the phone.
That's right. I've always said that. People say, oh, you want me to call people? Yeah, they're home. They got nothing else to do. They want to talk to somebody.
Exactly. and that's why I also see, like, time wise, if you're going to time block it, you really got to hit that 8:45, 9 o'clock start in the morning, and you sprint till 11:30. Same thing in the afternoon, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock to 6, 7 o'clock. Those are when people are going to work and coming back from work, and they're not in the middle of the day.
So there's several things I want to reiterate and talk about a little bit. Is okay, we talked about you've got a schedule. Okay, so there's two main things that you've hit really well for me and the people I work with. Is two things: is schedule and CRM. Okay, so a lot of people I know several agents that we work with now that are hell bent on using Mojo, and if you're not getting anywhere using Mojo, then you got to think twice about using it if you don't have the right dialogue to say. I'm gonna try to stay away from the word script. I have to get it out of my vocabulary now, because there's more dialogue and conversation skills that we want to work on, and that's what I help a lot of people with. So there's the schedule, which you have locked in, dialed in, and it does not matter if it's July 3rd or July 18th. And the weather can be rainy or snowy or whatever it is, because it does snow in July in Chicago, right? Anyway, no, just kidding there.
Exactly.
So the point is that these two things are the most important things for me as a coach, mentor, trainer. What I'd like to do is I like to talk to agents and say, okay, so you have a problem, you're not doing the business you're doing. Tell me your schedule. Show me your schedule. And that's the first shocker when they don't have anything to show me. The second shocker. Go ahead.
And the one word that I'd say that the only thing you're missing there, which we'll get to, I'm sure, is consistency.
Right.
And that's really the name of the game. You could do this for a week, 2 weeks, a month, but if you fall off the horse, that's where you kind of lose out, right? It's who can last 6 months doing this, a year, 2 years, 3 years. It really takes 5 years of this at most to fill up a big old database. You probably don't have to call much after that.
So fill up that big old database, which talks about your schedule, which you have to stick to, which talks about a CRM. Now you're using Mojo, and when you get a contact, you're not going into Mojo. You're not uploading a list to Mojo. You're doing your research. You let Mojo do the research in the beginning, and you go, right? So you're not getting distracted. You're just going and making the calls one after the other. Now, of course, every now and then you're going to get up, stretch your legs, and whatever it is. That's not what I'm saying. You're not tied to the phone, but you need to be tied to the phone in order to do it every day consistently. People say, well, how long? And you just answered the question, how long do I have to do this for? You got to do it for a long time. Bill Pipes will tell you that once you have 10,000 people in your database, you can stop. How long will it take you to get 10,000 emails in your database? I don't know. It could be 3 years. It could be 10 years. It could be more. No one knows that number because it depends on the consistency you put in on a daily basis. Secondly, the CRM, extremely important. There's a lot of them out there. And I'm going to tell you, Dan, 10 years ago, the question was, well, what CRM should I use? And the answer was always the same. It's the one that you will use. However, I'm going to tell you that depending on what your CRM is offering you, Follow Up Boss is probably one of the best, if not the best, because of what the systems and processes that it does offer to do. And I'm not going to go into that at all. I just want to say that of all the ones I've seen in my career, and it's been in sales business 30 years, this is the best one I've seen and the best one that I've ever used. So we're talking about schedule. We're talking about CRM. Persistence and consistency. And repetitious boredom. Now, people have heard me use that phrase time and time again. I'm going to have to add you to my people list that uses that. And the other one is the great Brian Danny. I don't even know who Brian is, but Brian is with the Beer Home Team out in San Diego, California. And he's just like you, repetitious boredom. And here's the thing, Dan, and correct me if I'm wrong or just if you disagree with me. It's that looking at the schedule and what you're doing is the boring part of it. It's not what you're doing, because you're talking to different people all the time. And yes, some of the calls will sound the same, but you get to have conversations with people. Would you agree with that?
100%. And I think the other part of that is like, choose your hard, right? I knew I didn't want to have my weekends jam-packed with work. To this day, yes, you call me on a Saturday, Sunday, doesn't matter what time. Am I picking up the phone and responding to emails and texts? Absolutely. But I'm not in the field that much on the weekends, and I value that completely, because Monday through Friday, I'm treating that like an 8 to 8 job.
Right. And those are the expectations you have set for yourself. And I would imagine that it's important to set those expectations for your family as well. Would that be right?
100%.
Right. Because that's part of the support that you really need in order to keep going. Because a lot of people say, well, I've got this, I've got that. And I do a session every Friday at 9:30 called scheduling and stuff. And it helps agents with scheduling. We had 4 or 5 people on this morning. And the interesting part about scheduling is, look, for you and me, we're out there doing different things. And then there's the parent that takes care of the children. That's mother, father, whatever it is. But that's a little bit different. Do you have you ever been distracted on calls and decided I got to make these calls up and add extra time? What do you do about distractions, Dan?
Don't have them. I mean, they come up, don't get me wrong. And if you do get distracted, or you do have to do X, Y, and Z, life is life. Life happens. It's not going to be perfect and linear. You got to make up for it. There's plenty of times as a 24-year-old in New York City where all your friends are going out during the day and having a great Saturday, where, you know what, I didn't hit my numbers, I didn't get my people into the database, or I haven't gotten a hold of X, Y, and Z person. I'm going to go into the office and I'll go take care of it. I'd much rather suffer in the short term, have a tough 10 to 20 years for the back end to be significantly better. So everybody needs, I'm going to interpret what you just said. Sacrifice now, be fucking persistent and disciplined with your time, and make sure you just get it done no matter what you have to do. Look, you know what? I was the same way when I was coming up in the business with what I was doing. I would get I was building houses, I was doing all kinds of things, and I knew that in order for me to get everything done, if I had to start at 5 a.m., I started at 5 a.m. because I knew between 5 and 8, no one was going to call me. But we also, honestly, back then we didn't have a cell phone. So that was a while ago. But I know I look very, very young, and I shouldn't have to talk like that. But the point I'm making is really simple: is you do whatever you have to do in order to fulfill your commitment. Because Dan, you made a commitment to your business. You made a commitment that you want to be successful. And you just said it a minute ago, where have a great 10 to 20 back end of your career, so that you can. You didn't say it, but I'm going to say it. So as time goes on, you can take it a little bit easier. You might not have to take those calls on weekends. But I want to get a little bit back to your start, because it's where you are now, kind of, sort of. So you started in Hudson County, New Jersey, Hoboken, Jersey City area. Is that correct? Yep.
Okay. So off the top, and you've been in Chicago 2.5, 3 years, whatever?
Yeah.
Okay. So the question is, how much business did you do in New Jersey last year?
I believe I closed like 22, 23 million, somewhere in that world.
Okay, so I want everybody to interpret what I just said and what the question I just asked. He built his database in New Jersey first out of college, built it up so well that now he's doing business from Chicago in New Jersey. And the reason he's able to do that, I'm going to let you explain it, is you're a listing-based agent. So the business you're doing in New Jersey, talk to me about that and how you're able to do it remotely.
Yeah, so it depends, right? If it's investors and things like that, it's an easy FaceTime for them, where they could just FaceTime me at any point. It is also leveraging and using people on the team that I trust. Elena is my go-to in Jersey, and she'll take care of everything A to Z for me, whether it's signage, lock boxes, going to see units and previewing them, getting in contractors and painters to fix things up, all that good stuff. She's my boots in the ground there. But on the same token, you still do have a lot of people that want to, meet you in person, right? So at that point, it's just being like, hey, I'm out in Chicago right now. And what I'll do is I can meet you on Thursday. If it's a Monday, I can meet you on Thursday, and we'll go over it in person. And then I'm taking the first flight out in the morning, and I'm taking the last flight out at night. and stacking as many meetings as I can during the day to cover my bases locally.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So you're doing the in-persons if you have to. Otherwise, do you do much of it by Zoom and all, or by FaceTime? You just mentioned FaceTime with an investor.
Yeah, I do. If the seller doesn't mind, I'm on Zoom and FaceTime. For me, at this point in my career, if it's a lower price point stuff, I'm going to be doing it Zoom or FaceTime. If it is 750, $1 million plus, I'm trying to get there in person. And I can always find at least a day in the week where I can move a couple things around and I'll be there.
Yeah. So everybody needs to think about this and look at what he's done. He's been able to build his database. It's all about building your database and building relationships.
Yeah. And that's what it comes down to. It's like, I'm not calling, I'm following up with Jersey for 3 hours a day, but I'm not calling outbound to them. I'm building Chicago back up just like I did with Jersey. And 3 years later, now we're 2.5 years later, we're finally starting, knock on wood, to have that ball snowball and that start to really start moving. But again, I knew that I would have to go back to life sucks. Here we go again, but let's go start a new market and let's see if this works. And sure enough, slowly but surely, it's pieces are starting to come together.
So it's just a matter of being disciplined and following through on your commitment and getting that all done. You agree with that?
100%. And it's not all, rainbows and butterflies. It's not like there's no stress involved. It's being mentally strong. And I think that's the hardest part. I still stress to this day. It's probably the number one thing that I work on is the mental game of this. Just knowing, okay, if I do what I need to do, everything else will work out.
How do you stay mentally strong? How do you keep that mindset going? How do you not get frustrated, pissed off, and just want to blow it all up?
It's a good question. It's knowing, what's on the other side of it at this point, and really just doubling down on yourself. And hey, you've been here before, you could do it again.
You have the history and you have a track record. And I want everybody to understand that we'll watch this now or watch it later. The important part of what we're talking about is you need to know when to quit and when not to quit, right? You talked about if someone thinks they can do this in 30 or 60 days, it's really not going to make a difference. I think you'll see that I think it might get easier and you might have an idea of your database and what's going to do after maybe, 90, 180 days, something like that. I mean, you've got to get some kind of traction. What about keeping yourself going, Dan? I mean, look, we talked about, everything might suck for 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, whatever it is. And then you might see a couple of deals here and there. And then the snowball after a couple of years. How do you keep yourself going mentally and financially?
Well, financially, it's kind of both, right? Like you don't do this for free. So you do get the financial benefits from it. And knowing that, the corporate world is definitely not for me. And it's being able to count on yourself and bet on yourself. That's probably the biggest part of it. But it's all risk reward no matter what you do. And I'd rather put that risk on myself than in someone else's hands.
So we've talked about your process. We've talked about different systems and how you do it, and your principles and commitments. So I want to get into the process of your follow-up because we said that we were going to talk about follow-up today. And for those who don't know, I run boot camps for the Align team, and Dan is a part of that. And he does a couple of sessions for me on follow-up. And so, Dan, if you would, without the slides, of course, actually because you're driving, we don't have them. Talk about your system of follow-up after getting people on the phone. How does it work? I mean, is it every week? Is it every month? What is the phone, text, email sequence? Is there a sequence? How do you do it? You have to have a system and a process to do it. Am I correct?
100%. And the biggest thing that I want to say with that is simple, right? Keep it simple. So the overarching thing is it's never a call to the seller. You should sell now because of X, Y, and Z. And if you don't agree, we're done, right? It's everything's tailored to them. Everything's tailored to where they're at. You got to meet people where they're at first and foremost. So the cadence really is as simple as it can be. Is you make that first phone call, you get their email, you have their number, you put them in, you send that follow-up email. Then the next step is going to be once a quarter, you're going to be sending them an email that you're custom tailoring and you're individually sending. You're not batch emailing them. It's not Happy Thanksgiving or Merry Christmas. People unsubscribe from that stuff. It is, here's the market. Here's what's going on. If you need anything or want a set of comps for your value, I'm happy to send it to you. Once a quarter. Once you get to a year time frame, that's when you're going to be calling them. Then once you get them on the phone after that year, then it's back to the quarterly email, so on and so forth. If they don't answer after the year, right, then you're calling them once a quarter until they do pick up, so on and so forth. Simple numbers game across the board. And it's custom tailoring things where, you know, hey, just wanted to reach out, spring market's here, highlight a deal or highlight, you know, one of your listings that went over asking or something good about it. Would you consider any offers at this point? The second that they engage with you, then you're right back all over them. Call, text, email, comps, X, Y, and Z to get them the right value.
Aside from Follow Up Boss and Mojo, are there any other systems that you're using that support your business? Lost you there, Dan.
Follow Up Boss, Mojo. I love Altos. Can you hear me?
Yes, I got you now.
How about now?
Yep.
Perfect. I love Altos Research. I think it's great. It's very, very, very valuable. Easy to digest. A quick PDF. So really simple on that. I like Bomb as well because I am finally pulling in.
Hold on.
Just give me 2 seconds and I'm good. So it's Follow Up Boss, Mojo, Altos Research. Boomtown is pretty good for sending comps just specifically.
Right.
What else? Launch Control, we've tried from a texting basis. It's not a bad platform, but I don't love it necessarily. That's about it. You know, again, it's simple. Everything with this is trying to be simple, not trying to reinvent the wheel. And how can you get the seller and the consumer the info that they want and need compared to rah, yay me, I just sold this property.
Great point. I'm glad you brought that up because you're not doing any of that on your phone calls, are you?
No. I mean, I'll mention like, hey, we just had 123 Main Street going to a bidding war, and this is how many buyers we had, and here's how many offers we had, and we're X amount over asking. That's all valuable, but it's not, you know, the just listed, just sold stuff. Yeah, that's good for buyers and things like that. But the seller doesn't really care. They care about their number. They care about exiting and getting their equity out.
So you're a new agent and you're a new agent and you want to really get going and you don't have a lot of money. What is your suggestion to that new agent? How would you get them started? And what's important for them to remember?
I mean, it's what I do now, right? With people coming into the team. So it's following this process to a T, and it's having a blunt conversation with them in the beginning, saying, what do you want out of this industry? What are your goals? What are you looking to do? And if it is the listing side, it's being clear, saying, hey, you know, give me a year, right? This isn't going to happen overnight. You will see deals come across your plate prior. There's no doubt about that. But for things to start humming, give it a year, give it your all, and let's break it down into a day-by-day, week-by-week process.
Mm-hmm.
So it's for the new agent, it's, are you hitting your numbers every single day for the first week? For the first day, let's start with that.
Yeah.
Then is it for the first week? Then did you do the first month? Then is it the first quarter? Then is it the first half of the year? And by month 3, 2 or 3, you're going to know if you're going to be doing this all day long or not.
Right. Okay. All right. So is there a benchmark that they should be looking to hit after 3 months, 6 months, 9 months? Is there a benchmark? Is there something they should be doing? Is there something that's typical, or is it just?
I mean, I like 500 people in your database by the end of the first half of the year. You know, can you put 100 people into your database that are new every single week? Every single month, right? That's 5 a day, 25 a week, 4 weeks in the month. So that's 100 a month, so on and so forth.
Okay. So when we say people in your database, these are people you've had actual conversations with and you've got an email. And is that the key? Is that the key, the email?
Email and legit number.
Okay. So if you get them on the phone, basically you have a legit number. Is that correct?
100%.
Okay. So I know
one of the things with getting their email, once you get it and you write it down, I'm a big believer in repeat it. Always confirm that email. There's nothing more that sucks where you're like, great, I just had this awesome conversation. I put him in the database. I send the email and it bounced on me. Just repeat it back. Just wanted to make sure you're 123@gmail.com. Yep, great, cool. I'll get this out tonight. Second part of that is once you say, hey, yeah, I will get you this info, send it to him that evening. Don't wait till the next day. Don't wait till the next week. That's the first chance you get to say, yeah, I'm here and I'm serious about this.
Now, Dan, if you and I were live on a system where we could actually share screens and you could show us your follow-up boss, there's some interesting details that you would show. And that would be the deals you've done with people that have been in your database for 4, 5, 6 years. Talk to me about, some of those, because we can talk all we want, but that's proof. So talk to me about the proof of what you're doing and how it works.
Yeah, so when I send these emails out, I don't want them long, short and sweet. People don't like long emails. People don't read long emails, right? So, hey, Dave, wishing you a happy summer. As usual, just wanted to give you an update on where the local blank market is. And you're filling this in, the local Hoboken market, the local Chicago market, the local this market, just to get it specific. Here are some stats. Finish off with, if you have any questions about then another blank that I fill in, your condo on 3rd Street, your townhouse on Main Street, your single family on Wisconsin Street, right? All these types of things that make it hyper local and hyper specific for that client. And they don't have that unsubscribe button if you're sending it on a batch email.
Right. So you're sending it individual. You're sending
individual.
Right. And so you have the email set up. Right. You have the email set up. All you do, you fill in the blank for each individual log. I'm sorry, in the database, correct?
100%. Yeah. So basically what it is, like, I'll have a quarterly email that I create. Like right now it's summer 2024 email, right? So in Follow Up Boss, I go in and I'm the one that's creating these templates, right? So it's specific to my tonality, my voice, my style. And of course, before I do that, I'm looking things up online. I'm getting the right data in there and all that good stuff. But I'm creating this email, creating a template in Follow Up Boss, write out the email with just 1 or 2 blanks to make it specific for their location and specifically for where their property is and what type of property it is. And by doing so, people can see that, okay, this isn't just a batch bullshit email that they're hitting their whole database with. This is specific for my property and my market.
Right. Because
those are the keys.
Those are the keys. Excellent. So, all right. So Dan, you've been in Chicago for 2.5 years or so, and then you're building a team. What is next for you? Where do you want to take your business to a point, and how will you do that?
Number 1 in Chicago is the goal. That's it. Nothing short of that. Top dog in regards to
how long do you think that will take? How long
closed.
do you think that will take to get?
I don't know. You always underestimate what you could do in a year and you always overestimate what you could do in a year and underestimate what you could do in 10. But by 2-3 years from now, I want to be the top broker in Lincoln Park, like my specific market in Chicago. In 10 years from now, I want to be top dog in the state.
So understand, everybody, that these are driven goals. And look, let's face it. I mean, look, it doesn't matter how old you are, if you have the drive and the right assets. Now, when I talk about assets, Dan, I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about the support in the team. And that's where you started, right? You started with 2 people that were motivated and wanted to do business. I mean, Eric started in commercial, and I know Brett was selling cars and doing rentals, right? So you can come from anywhere to do this business, but also the people that you align with, to use a word, is extremely important. Talk to me about how important it has been for the people you've worked with and how it been able to support you and your income.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to this, right? When I built up a business in Jersey, I was then, my head and heart was, hey, it's time to go home. and it's not an easy industry to just pick up and go to a brand new market, let alone a brand new state. And it's one of those where I had the decision that was quickly made and not really thought about too much because it was a no-brainer. But it was, do I go and do this myself, or do I go and still have the background and support of what I grew with? And it was a no-brainer of, yeah, we're gonna keep the good times rolling, and the people that got me to where I'm at, there's a reason for that. And it's, yes, did I work my ass off, and do I still try to? Absolutely. But on the same token, if it's good so far, why rock the boat? And it's only getting better. And you want to be with people with big dreams. You want to be with people who are better than you, who do more volume than you. That's where you're going to grow. You don't want to, you want to be a small, do you want to be a bigger fish in a smaller pond, or a smaller fish in a bigger pond? And you always want to be in a room where you're the smallest person.
Well, I want to add to that, because what you're talking about is the people that I work with as well. And one of the things that I have found in the years I've been in this business is I always want to work with the people that want to work, that have a passion for what they do. And you know what? It's so important to have that, because you're able to really multiply and exponentially build your business a little bit quicker, sometimes a lot quicker. Because one thing I do know about the group that you and I hang out with is that there's not one problem in this business that we cannot solve, and there's not one question that we cannot answer. Now, that sounds like those are big statements. I know that. Okay. This is a collaborative effect. It's not a competitive effect, right? So we believe in collaboration over competition, and we have people nationwide and worldwide that we can collaborate with and get answers to, right? I mean, we're part of a big system, as a little system, and the people you hang out with is who you really are, right? What's the most important thing, Dan, that you can tell anybody or everybody out there about building their business from scratch?
Be ready to have good times. Be ready to have bad times, for sure. And if you're going to do it, make sure you're ready for the bad before the good. Be consistent as hell, and don't let anything get in your way for it. You're going to have a lot of downs in this industry. The ups will come, but drown the noise out, trust yourself, and more importantly, trust the people around you.
Is that the secret to not getting frustrated and not quitting when you want to quit? Because I know it always happens. We want to quit. I mean, we just say, screw it. Is that the secret? Lean on the people around you, and what's the secret to the mindset? I mean, look, bullshit happens to us all from time to time, and things happen, and we say, screw it, we'll move on. When just like next week would be the time where you're going to hit it. How do you know?
Choose your hard, right? It's by doing nothing, it's not going to get better, right? So do you want it hard now, or do you want it hard when shit really matters?
So you've worked through slow times, you've worked through some hard times, and now you had great times over the last few years, and now we've got this system, this issue with not only inventory, not only interest rates. Now we're being hit with, the whole NAR thing, and I really don't like to spend a hell of a lot of time on it, but it's important to understand. Are things going to change a lot for you, being mostly on the listing side? What has changed? What would you tell people to do?
I don't think it's going to change at all on the listing side. It'll only get better. From the beginning on the listing side, you're working on agreements, you're working with commissions, and you're working with contracts. You're never listing properties without something signed in writing and saying, here's our services, and this is what we're going to charge for them. So that's why I don't see much of a difference on that.
Okay. Is there a difference for you to talk to sellers about cooperating commission with buyers?
It's probably coming up 80-90% right now.
Okay.
And my response to it is, yes, is there some change? Sure. But in the past, you could pay out $1 if you wanted to, right? But if we have a very similar property to another one, and there's one buyer that's looking for these two properties, and the agent's pushing it, and one property's paying out 2.5%, 3%, and we're paying out 0%, which property do you think that agent's going to push harder?
Right. And I want everybody to understand the example that Dan just used is kind of like what people say doesn't happen. I mean, out there we have to say it doesn't happen, but it does happen every day. And one of the things I like to say to sellers is, look, commission is a part of marketing. It's a part of how we do it. Just like price is a part of marketing, right? These days, it depends on what your strategy, Dan, is as an agent, whether you're going to price it on the low end or you're going to price it on the high end. What we know is what we believe that they should list it for and what we believe they can get. We can share that information, but at the end of the day, it's going to be the seller and the buyer deciding what that house is going to sell for. Now, with all that being said, understand when I say it's part of marketing, look, they're going to know that you're going to give something out, even though it's not going to be published, right? And they're going to do what they're going to do, whether they show a house that's not giving out anything or not. So I want everybody to understand that you just have to be better at your business. Plain and simple. That's really all there is, right? You just have to be better at what you're doing. Would you like to add anything to that, Dan?
Yeah, no, I mean, are you giving them value that's worth X amount? I mean, in the end of the day, you're getting paid big money. So how can you make sure that they've got not just the right value, but the value exceeds what they were looking for?
And I want everybody to understand I've talked about this with Grant Wise a couple of weeks ago on the broadcast, actually the 6-year broadcast. And if you haven't seen that, please go back and look at it. It's on YouTube on Real Estate Talk-TGIF channel. But we talked about the new phrase that everybody's been using since October, and that's, well, you have to bring value, right? Now, guys, if you didn't know it, I want you to go back and watch the entire broadcast that we're just about to finish up on, because all Dan talked about was how he brings value to his database. What he's given them, the information he's given them, how he's talking to them, right? He's not saying, do you want to sell your house? I got a house down the street that just sold. He's not saying that. That's not value. A buyer intake, right? You're talking to a buyer about what they want in a house, like how many bedrooms, baths. That's not value. That's data intake. What his value is how you do your business, what you do on a regular basis, what information can you bring them that would be consequential and very informative to them. So bringing value is not intake data. It's just, first off, showing that you care. And one of the things that Dan teaches all his people is make it easy for them to talk to you. And the only way to do that is by the questions you ask. Would you agree with that, Dan?
Yeah, 100%. And it's one of those things, like, respond to people. Don't ghost them. Pick up the phone. When I leave a meeting and, at some point in the meeting, I'm like, one thing I can guarantee you is I will get you the answers or the response ASAP. I'm quick. I'm on my game. Try me. And if they call me, I'm picking up.
As we're coming up on time, I did want to ask you one other question, because you mentioned this earlier, and you asked them how many agents have called you, and the answer that you showed and gave, that what they say is usually none or one or two. Are we talking about for sale by owners, expires? Who are we talking about there? How many agents have called them?
We're talking about circle prospecting, just listed, just sold, long-term nurture.
Okay, great. So it's important to know that what we've talked about today in the last 40 minutes or so is all about being different. It's all about being persistent. It's all about what you can do to help them. Dan, I just got a couple more things. I want to thank you so much for being on today. And I know I asked you this question earlier, but if there's one quick thing agents should do, is what would that be? A new agent getting started in his business.
Get serious about what you want and get very real with yourself. Make sure that you're not being busy to be busy.
Important.
And you got to just understand, like, this is not a short-term gain. It's a long-term commitment.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And two more things, man, and then we'll be done. I want to thank you so much for doing this while you're driving in traffic. But the one question I have, and then the one other thing. First is the question, how can I help you grow your business?
Fire over some people in Chicago. Now, continuously doing what you're doing, right? Help with the boot camps, help getting our agents up and running, and really spreading the word. Awesome, man. Thank you so much. And just like every other broadcast, you did hear about this. You asked me about this, and the hat coming your way, man.
I'm waiting.
I'm waiting.
Yeah, it's coming, man. I'm putting them in the mail this week. I got a few to send out. I want to thank you for being on today. You know what? I screwed up and did not put up your information. I'm going to do that now. This is Dan's Instagram as well as his contact information. Just real quick, next week we have the leader and CEO of the Evers Group LLC at Century 21. He's out in Utah. What a great guy! What a great business. Known him for a while. But again, we're going to have episode 320 next week, and CaptivateReg.com, Spitz at CaptivateReg.com. And on Instagram, it's at Captivate_REG. Dan, thanks so much for coming on today. I mean, it's been really great and insightful information about follow-up and everything else that you do and how you built your business. Stay on for 1 minute as we finish. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week at the regular time at 11 a.m. Eastern time. And have a happy, great weekend. Thank you. Hit it.
Awesome.